Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Quantum Leap Season 1, Episode 4. So, we again have to have Song, who is to not know what he is going to do when he immediately leaps into a person. Because Song, of course, is waiting for Addison to give him some kind of information. Or, in all honesty, Song is waiting for Addison to have Ziggy give him the yes or no nod to, like, oh yeah, you should do this thing. You should do this stuff. That's not going to get annoying if they keep playing that up. So, we have yet another episode where it's a 2022 show doing a 2022 theme, which, of course, in this episode is to be a bounty hunter. Wow, that's exciting. Really is. Because this whole episode just becomes a stretch of an episode. And we end up getting a magical backstory from one of our characters, who of which I already stated what their backstory was from Pilot. So I'll save you some seconds of what I've already gone on and said to then find out that what I had said in the pilot episode was to be correct about a certain backstoried character, and I did not go on and realize it. So that's great. So, here's the thing. I don't like the theme of this episode, but there is some writing here that I do like. Specifically, what's going on in Song's mind. What Song is going through with the person that he's tied to in this episode. I think I could really just hang on that because I could care less about anything else. Because this is just a chase episode. This is just like, hey, let's have these characters have busy work. And that's what everybody's doing in this episode. So, the most interesting thing, of course, from the last episode was Janice. And they don't have her in this episode whatsoever. So, they have to just reference her in this episode. Because more than likely, maybe a guest star, or just the fact that maybe they had too much money being spent into all those other episodes. Episode 4 just has to be weaker by comparison. So, like, we just kind of have to go and build to when we actually see Janice next. So I'm like, okay, alright. So, Carte Blanche. At some point I'll have to remember that, or more than likely I'll just have to state that I said this. Carte Blanche, because I know I'll probably forget the name of that, because I'm not good with names, especially when I have to go and legitimately look them up, because I'm just not good with names. Anyways, so we go on and have Jake being played by Justin Hartley in this episode. Of course, if anyone was to have gone on and been in the later seasons of Smallville with the Smallville Green Arrow, or people were to have gone on and seen This Is Us, Justin Hartley is to go on and play the person who is tied with Song in this episode. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I like this actor anyways. Like, I've gone on and seen him in the movie The Hunt. Like, I saw him in there. I was like, alright. Like, he wasn't in there for very long, but he was in that movie also. So, anyways, like, how the beginning of this episode plays out exactly like how I thought it would play out from a week ago. So I'm like, man, is this episode becoming predictable? Am I just gonna go on and just be like, yeah, I know everything that's gonna happen like a week before? So guys, we're gonna go on in episode 5, and it's gonna be like the later Back to the Future kind of episode. is what we're going with. At the later franchise of Back to the Future, if you know what I mean, it's going to be copy and paste from that. It's like we're almost going to have like some goofy references. It's all going to be all kinds of goof. So we'll go into that episode and it'll be just like that. And then I'll come and find out it's a completely different story and it's way more better than I hoped that it could have been. I'm really looking for like either a future episode, like a future done in the distant future, or I'm really just looking for a detective noir episode that feels like nothing like 2022 television. If there's a detective noir show out there, then I'm just like, well, okay, well, you got me. But so, anyways, so Song is to be a bounty hunter in this episode, so he is leaped into a woman named Eva. Oh no, we're gonna have awkwardness because this guy is a woman. Oh no. Who cares? It shouldn't matter. So, Eva goes on to at some point in this episode realize she's gonna go on and make some mistakes, and then of course by the end of the episode it seems that they're kind of working towards a solution by the end of it, because we have to really there's some stretch. So anyways, so with that said, yeah, I feel like there's really nothing for me to go on and state for for the teeing up of this episode. I just feel like I should just go into spoilers. Like, I got nothing. I really got nothing because I feel like there's so little going on here. I feel like there's not much for me to go on and have when we go into spoilers. So let's just go into it. Let's double fly this bad boy up. If you want to know any more tee ups, just watch the episode. There's not a lot going on. So let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we can spoil this episode. So for like behind the leap and like the leap part, I think I'm just gonna go on and try to do it like the show, but it's not gonna be perfect. So we'll just expect that. So in the beginning of the episode, we have Song who leaps into a woman in a bar, and we have a guy named Stewart who is hitting on said woman, and we have Song who ends up getting offended by this guy who's consistently trying to like touch on this girl's arm, who of course that's who he is. So we have Song that just turns around and throws a drink at this guy to get him to go away, and so he does. And so now that we finally have Song who is to leap into a woman, we of course have Addison who's like, "Oh my god, you're leaped into a woman." Ha ha ha. Like, now we have to go on and state that like now Song has to realize like what clothes that he's not wearing within his sleep, and then Song is like, "Huh?" And then he's like, "Oh." So just imagine if this character had to go through any kind of normal like day-to-day like woman things, like to really just amp up the goofiness that they have to really go in for this kind of episode. So luckily they didn't do that. I was happy about that. So Song is to bump into a guy named Jake, and so Song is to not know who this guy is, and Song has gone on to empty his purse trying to figure out who he is, and he finds all of these weapons, these handcuffs, these tasers, and there is no ID. So Song ends up asking for his tab to find out what name, I guess, the tab is under, and he's like, "Oh, okay, Eva Sandoval." So Addison looks it up, and so it's like, okay, we are a bounty hunter. That's why you are who you are. And your partner here, of course, is Jake. And then we go on to, of course, that song was like, oh, yeah, Jake, yeah. Because Song is to mention that he has a taser, and Jake is like, yeah, I bought you that for Christmas. And so, come to find out, bizarrely, that whole thing ends up somehow working towards the end of the episode. So, Song is to go on and ask Jake for their target's picture. And so Jake ends up, of course, handing him a picture of Stuart Watkins, the exact same guy that we, of course, had Song just threw a drink at and got him to go away. I'm like, I knew it from last week that this character would somehow tie, and it wouldn't just been a throwaway thing. Like, I knew this was going to be something important, and so it becomes something important. So, Song is going on and talking to Jake, and is to try to see where Stuart is now, and Song goes on and points to where the guy is. It's like, oh yeah, he's like right over there, and Jake is like, we don't point. If you point, like, you're just telling them, like, hey, we're coming after you. So, Stuart is running, and Jake is like, oh, I hate it when they run, because every cop would always go on and tell you that they hate runners, because they hate doing that kind of job where they have to run for things. So, it's a cliche. So, we have, of course, Stuart trying to get to his car, and come to find out Jake is to be there, telling Stuart, it's like, well, hey, like, if you're going in to try to get a pretty good getaway, like, you should park at a better spot. And so now Stuart is to try to go on and see Eva, and he's like, well, I'm going to try to punch her, so that way I can try to get away from her. Eva goes on and clocks Stuart, and Jake is like, wow, have you been taking boxing on your off time? And Eva's like, well, yeah, because my last sleep. That's not what she said, but she should have. So, and I know I'm probably saying that Song is a she, but either way, going with whoever I'm saying, either Eve or Song, just go with it. So, or Eva, my bad. So, they end up going on and bringing in Stuart. They arrest him. And so, now they go to Alberto's office, who, of course, is Eva's dad's office. And so, we have, of course, where Jake is to go into the office thinking that he heard something, and Song is to ask Addison, it's like, well, like, was there a crime reported? Like, maybe we're going into an ambush, or something's going to go horribly awry here. And so Addison's like, no, there was nothing reported. But also, we find out that Ziggy is slow, so, like, how can we guarantee anything that Ziggy is telling us is accurate? So, Song is waiting for Jake to come back, and he doesn't. So Song goes in after him. Come to find out, we realize that Jake is on one knee, and he's proposing to Eva. And Eva, of course, or Song, is to stay, it's like, or say, you know what, I need some time to think about this. And Jake is like, wait a minute, like, you need time to think about this? Hence another decision where if you were to have gone on and just said yes, but he says no, Jake now has to go on for the entire episode and figure it out why it is that Song will not go on, or Eva, will not go on and marry him. He has to just, like, really go on and narrow it down. Like, well, like, was it the way I proposed? Like, was it the way that I said it? Like, what is it? So, it's a whole episode of that. But, like, still, I liked the performances between these two characters. So, it is what it is. So, Alberto ends up popping the champagne, and he comes in, he's like, yeah, like, because Alberto, of course, is Eva's dad. And so he's like, yeah, like, did she say yes? Like, how did it go? And Jake is like, no, like, and I can't understand why she needs more time. Like, I got this ring, like, a year ago when I put it on layaway, and, like, when layaway was actually a thing. Now it doesn't really seem like much places have layaway anymore, but this is also 1981 in this episode. And oddly enough, we had both Magic and we had both Jen that were talking about how it's 1981, and if Eva is to be a woman, then Song might be wearing pantyhose because that, of course, was to be all the rage in 1981. I'm like, who cares? Again, but like I get how they're trying to, like, historically, like, pantyhose was popular during this time period, so might as well reference and put it in there. I get it. So we have Jake that leaves the room, and Alberto is trying to, like, talk to Song and just be like, well, I thought he was, like, the perfect guy for you, and, like, this and that, and so Song just goes on and is to pull, like, the next job that they're gonna go on and do. What ends up being a woman, of course, going by the name of Tammy. So Jake goes back into the office and is to immediately see that Eva is going on to the next job, and Jake is like, really? Like, right to work already? Like, you're... Like, who cares about me, right? Just get to the next job. So, Jake is to leave and go into his car, and Eva is to follow Jake. And so Eva tells Jake, it's like, well, like, the whole reason why I was getting to this file is because I wanted to go on and have us do this job together for how, like, successful we were in the last job. Like, hey, let's go on and do this together so you can help me. And Jake is like, why? And Song goes on and states, it's like, well, like, so we can talk more, so we can talk about this, and, like, why I really need time. And so Jake is just like, okay, like, because Song convinces Jake that it's like, you know how I just like to talk things out. And Jake is like, yeah, you are that kind of girl, luckily. Luckily, this somehow just worked out for you to just word this in a way of which that he's like, yeah, that makes sense. So Jake goes on to drive with Song to make their way to the next bounty. So as they're making their way to know Tammy's address, we of course have Addison that is giving us the information on Tammy. That it seems that somehow she was to skip bail, forcing a family member of hers to pay out for her bail, which is like $500 something. So I guess this girl just had parking tickets that she was avoiding. So, like, that's the whole thing of it, is like those things start to add up, and so we now have Tammy that is being collected by a bounty hunter. The cliche-ish way of doing a bounty hunter thing, but either way, it just happens that way anyways. So, we have, of course, Jake going on and, like, separating from Song, giving Song time to now be alone with Addison. And so I think the main reasoning why that Song was so hesitant to say yes to Jake is because Song is also dealing with his own relationship problem, which Song is to remember that he has a girlfriend, and so that's his big hesitation about him going on to not say yes to Jake because he's already connected to someone else, which may go on and weigh on him in future episodes with the big payout that ends up happening at the end of this episode, so on and so forth. So, we have Song who is talking to Addison about this whole memory that he has, and so again, there is still this back and forth of whether or not, like, Song should remember everything. But it seems that Song is getting these little pieces and little things. So, now, like, let's go on and do, like, the behind the leap stuff. Because there's already one scene that I didn't go on and mention here. So, come to find out, Ian is to understand what Janice is doing. Janice is somehow going on and not only probably trying to figure out what Song is trying to do within his leap, but Janice is trying to also figure out what Ian is doing, what Addison's doing, what Jen is doing, what Magic is doing, simply by going on and looking through their records. And so Ian is like, well, hey, like, considering, like, Janice is doing this, I think I have to go on and also look through all of your guys' records also to know everything about you. And we have Magic that's like, yeah, about that. And Ian's like, oh? So Magic is to go on and say, it's like, well, like, there's nothing that I feel is, like, putting up any real red flags. But Magic feels that he has to go on and go with Ian and talk to him separately about, like, his past, his backstory. So, like, I think I'm just going to get to that now to get it out of the way, because it has, like, nothing to do with the rest of the story. So let's do that now. So, we have Ian that goes separately with Magic. And so Magic goes on to explain that he was in Vietnam before, and that he, of course, was to be within the throes of battle, and all of a sudden had felt this odd nudge. And so it seemed that Magic was to welcome this bizarre supernatural nudge, and somehow there was to be a side effect of Magic having Sam leap into him, because Magic was to have realized that Sam had leaped into him, and that Magic would consistently have these dreams of this guy who leaped into him. And so, come to find out, Magic went on to, because of that whole quantum leap experience, he went on to try to get, like, as high as he could possibly get to find out about this project, so he himself could know about what they had gone on and done to him in the past. And so it's like, oh, okay, like, that seems like really interesting that we had that play out, where somehow Magic could justify, like, his name Magic, of him, like, always kind of, like knowing things and so on and so forth to help out all the crew. So maybe like if Sam at some point in the past was to leap into like a psychic or a person who is kind of acceptable to like uh kind of having these like real like gut feelings or something like that are unexplained, maybe we're going to have more side effect like characters that come forward, and like that would be kind of cool if they played that into uh possibly other leaps. That would be cool. Like what if they brought like a character from the previous Quantum Leap show and had them like be older and like kind of played with that then. That would be fun. Like to replay with that same character from a previous Quantum Leap episode, but I don't know how. Like they would have to kind of credit that writer and so on and so forth, and I don't know if they want to do that. We'll figure that out. So, anyways, so we have that go on, and that's like its thing on its own. So, and I like that. That was a good part of that of this episode. It was delivered good, even though I already knew what Magic was going to say for the most point. So we now have to also have Jen pull Addison aside, and so Jen is to realize that there's a lot of stuff that Ben was supposed to do that didn't add up. That Addison was a state that Ben had gone on to go to this one like convention, and come to find out instead had spent several days elsewhere. And so now Jen is to have to thumb through anything that Addison is to know, so that way Addison is to have to realize that Song had been lying to her for months. And so now it's going to go on and be like pulling apart like the whole like history of both Ben and Addison, and we'll see where that breaks or that really tears at Addison to know that Ben has been lying to her, and how that's going to play into this show. Maybe Addison is not going to go on and want to be Song's hologram in an episode. Maybe she's going to tell him the wrong things to do, and maybe that'll turn out to be a fun episode. So, anyways, back into the leap. So we go on to have Song that is to knock on this door to pretend that this is to be a person who got the wrong package, which is kind of like the common thing to do. Like if you go on and you watch like Big Bang Theory, there are episodes where Leonard would pretend that he got Penny's mail by mistake, so that way he can go on and talk to her. So we go on and have Song who's pretending to be a mistaken package person, to then try and go on to talk to Tammy. And so Song goes on and is to tell Tammy that he's a bounty hunter, and that he, of course, is to state about the $500. And so we have Tammy who goes on and gives Song $500 in interest, and is to say, it's like, well, hey, if I go on and give you this money, will you tell whoever that like I wasn't here? And Song is like, it doesn't work that way. I have to bring you in. So Tammy is to now start to tear up and just be like, well, but my lover Zach, like we're gonna go on this trip together, and 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 like he might propose, like you know what that's like, right? You love someone, right? Yeah, really pulling at the heartstrings for Song here, who is going through that same problem. So, come to find out, we of course have Jake, who is realizing that there are two goons that are to quite possibly also be looking for Tammy. So, because we might just have a number of people that are all kind of gunning for this same contract. So, we now have them assessing the situation, and we have Jake who ends up putting a chair in front of the door, and Tammy's like, well, maybe they're friends of mine, and Song is like, yeah, like, friends go on and bash your door in. That makes all the sense in the world. So, Jake is to realize that there's a window that could lead them to this dumpster, and he's like, okay, well, at least we'll have a soft landing. So, they go on and they jump into this dumpster. They get out of the dumpster and they run off to try to avoid bullets flying from these guys. So, all three of them go into this car and they're driving off. So, we of course again have Addison who's going on and like stating that they definitely need to go on and obtain Tammy and arrest her, or otherwise will of course go on and have Song, who does not leap. So we have Song was like, okay, so that must be my one goal in this episode, and hopefully, God, what does he say? Like Elle Woods. He compares her to Elle Woods, the blonde lawyer movie, the Legally Blonde character. I don't know why I remember that for some goofy reason, but I remember Legally Blonde. I guess it's a unique enough movie, but still, that is the reference that we get here is Elle Woods, and so Tammy's like, "Who's Elle Woods?" And Song is like, "Oh yeah, like I guess she won't get that reference because she's not Captain America." So, uh, we have Tammy realizing that Song is talking to herself and answering herself in her own brain out loud. So, but then of course Jake is still consistently throw shade about like, well, you couldn't have answered me when I proposed to you. So they go on and they have at one point where Jake just has to like pull a car over, and so they handcuff Tammy to this pipe, and so now Jake is to now have to pour his heart out to Song and state it's like, well, like I can't figure it out still, like I can't like, and so we have Song who admits that them going on and leaving Illinois would be a bad idea, because then Song would not go on and be in business with her father, and so she'll be separated from her father. And Jake is like, well, yeah, but like, what does it matter? Like, she could have gone on and done her own business in this other state. And so we have Tammy that's going on and realizing what's happening here. It's like, oh, he's pouring his heart out to you, and like, and you're not going on and giving it back. So while Song and Jake are kind of talking, Tammy all of a sudden is running off because I guess like the thing that Song cuffed her to like didn't work out that well to cuff her there. So Tammy is running off, and so we have Jake that's like, you know what, like I can go on and give your dad $500 to have that woman like get away from me, so that way this can all just be done. So again, Addison is confirmed, like, well, you have to go after that woman. You have to find her somehow. So Song ends up mentioning that Zach has a place where obviously Tammy is going to go to this Carte Blanche place. So Jake is just like, okay, well, I guess that's where we're heading to next. So they go to the Carte Blanche. So what ends up happening here is that, come to find out, Tammy is to go to this place to talk to Zach about like what his business is, what he's kind of dealing. And so Tammy is to go on to get to Zach just to kill him off. And then they go on and find out that Tammy is to be a much bigger character than we thought she was. And it wasn't just all about parking tickets, it's something way bigger than this. It's kind of like the Capone of bounty hunting, I guess. Where it's like, oh, like, we just thought we were gonna get him for like a little thing, but now it's like a much bigger thing than we thought it was. It's like the reverse of Al Capone, I guess, because Al Capone was like this guy is a murderer and this and that, but they got him on tax evasion, so it's kind of like the same thing, but in reverse in this case. So they witness this murder, and so now they're trying to leave this carte blanche place, and they bump into something. So like, oh my god, let's run, because they know that they were heard. So Song and Jake are running off, and so what ends up happening is they are to run off, and they're trying to figure out where Tammy could go next. So they're trying to figure out, they're trying to put the pieces together. And so we also have another scene where Song is talking to his father, and it seems that again, he ends up kind of bringing something up that is to have Song go on to figure out where Tammy could be next. So to me, it seems like the area that they're going into looks like a train station, but I don't know if that's what it is or not. It could be a plane station. They all look the same, but to me, this looks like a train station for whatever reason. So they make their way to where Tammy is, and there are also two goons, and so Jake is telling Song, it's like, well, hey, like, we have to kind of be leery about these two goons. Jake goes on and is to try to call the cops over to talk about the two goons, and like the cops chase after them. So we then have Song and we have Jake who find Tammy, and Tammy's like, man, you bounty hunters just don't give up. So, but now it seems that Tammy is to go on and have a weapon of her own, and that is to be placed by Jake. And so Jake turns to Song. It's like, you know what? Like, I think I do want to go on and like propose to you again, but I think I want to go on and I want to do it like during Christmas. You remember Christmas, right? Because also, like, Jake was to like have these heartfelt moments, because it seems that when bullets are flying, that like the only thing that he wants to really talk about is like the problem that he's having with the one he loves, because he might die soon. So it's kind of pressing certain things. So, but we have Jake reminding Song about Christmas, and Song doesn't make the connection, so Addison has to go on and connect the dots for Song to say, like, well, hey, like, remember when Jake was to mention about the taser that he gave you for Christmas? And Song is like, oh, yeah. So Song ends up going on and saying, like, yeah, like, Christmas is great, but I don't know where, like, or I don't know what we're gonna do. And so Jake kind of looks at this woman's briefcase, and Jake is like, oh yeah, like Addison makes the conclusion that the briefcase is metal, so like when you tase her, like Tammy will go down. So Tammy ends up getting tased. She goes down. Uh, the briefcase seems to be laced with this secret compartment with money in it. So Tammy was trying to try to do a getaway. We also had in one part of the scene that may, I'm hoping, work out in Song's favor in other episodes. Because in my brain, I'm like, well, why didn't any of this come up, especially with the whole pick locking thing? Why didn't that come up in any of the other episodes? But it now just came up here conveniently to help us out with this story. So, come to find out, Song is to have had a history of taking things apart and then putting it back together. And so Song, it seems, can even go on and pick locks, and it works out for what he's trying to do in this episode. But that ends up just having him go on and get to where Tammy is so he could talk about his relationship. So now after they go on and they catch Tammy here, we then have Jake who goes on and gives this kind of like little cheek kiss to Song and then walks off. He's like, well, hey, I'm going to report like this and have this girl be like cuffed and be sent away. So we now have Song who is just talking to Addison in the middle of everywhere. And so Song is to finally remember what he was to try to remember before about this girlfriend, because Song was to ask Addison at one point if his girlfriend is upset that he had gone on and leaped without telling anybody because no one knew. And so Addison is to say, it's like, well, she's confused, but like, I think she's fine. So Song is to go on and is to start to remember who his girlfriend is, because he starts to see who it is, and like it all jogs his memory with Addison saying the same thing that his girlfriend had said in the past, and come to find out Addison and his girlfriend are one and the same. So Song is to now realize that Addison is his girlfriend, and so Song is like, oh my god, you're my girl, and Addison's like, yeah. And so immediately I have to go on and talk about something from prior Quantum Leap show. So Sam, of course, every time he leaped, he had some kind of form of amnesia. But then at one point, Sam was to go on and start to remember everything, to the point of also Sam being able to finally leap out to then talk to Ziggy and everybody and so on and so forth. And he was to finally find out that he had a wife that he was to probably just sleep with, because, of course. And then Al was to go on and be the leaper for one episode. The guy who was to go through and not have the handheld, he was the other guy. So Sam found out he had a girlfriend in that show, but then when Sam goes back and then is to be back to the normal, like him going on and switching places back again with Al to be the guy who leaps, again, Sam is to go on and had completely forgotten everything about him having a wife. So like Sam's wife by the end of the episode is to state, it's like, well, like he doesn't remember me, does he? And they say no, like, I'm sorry. So I think that was actually a good thing about that show. Now we go on and we have to have Song, who is to know he has a wife outside of Leaping, and so I'm wondering if that's going to go on and have them write these things where there's going to be this love triangle, or there's going to be this goofy thing where, like, Song can't go on and commit to a relationship because he technically already has one with his hologram. And so I'm just thinking in my brain, like, this should have been stretched out to be like a season ending thing, or like they shouldn't have done this right away. I don't think it works, but a lot of people could be like stating it's like, well, that's what make this show different from the other, is to do that early, is to like possibly have to work around that in other episodes. I don't know. So, with that said, let me know your thoughts about this episode. Let me know how you feel, if you liked, if you hated, if you just kind of felt like, meh, whatever. This is another episode. Um, yeah, like, hopefully I also remembered everything that happened in this episode. There's a lot of stuff to pull from or through. Uh, yeah, I think everything is handled. I think everything is taken care of. So I think with that said, I'm just gonna go on and get the heck out of here so I can kind of put this out. Holy crap, 46 minutes, and I'm sure that this was like 42. So I'm sorry about how the length of it is, but it's gonna be like this every week. We'll just admit that now. Considering this is just a weekly show, it's gonna be as long as it is. Like, if this was to be like a thing where uh like I'm just binge watching all of this, like the reviews would probably be a lot shorter. But considering this is like a weekly thing and I'm having to reflect on something from a week ago and remember that and retain it here, like that's probably the reason why the length of the episodes are. Plus I'm also reflecting on a prior show which I have experience and knowledge and know it all of knowing, so that's why these episodes are to be as long as they are. Sorry, they just are. So with that said, goodbye everybody. Goodbye everybody. One thing. So, or technically two, the title of this episode is to actually be like some kind of homage to a film called Indecent Proposal, whereas of course this episode is to be called the Decent Proposal. But not only that, we also, by the end of the episode, we have to talk about the leap. Because, of course, we go on to have Song leap into the Western time period, where it seems he's going on and is to be an old man. It doesn't really seem like there's much information on who this person is or who he's talking to, but it seems that the woman that Song is talking to is talking about their hardships and so on and so forth. And Song, after going on and talking to this woman, ends up believing to then realize that he is back in the Wild Wild West. He has all these kind of settings and pieces that are going on and telling him that. And then that's how they end the episode. I completely spaced out about the whole like Western leap thing, and I forgot about it. So with that said, because it really didn't tell me much. So with that said, on to the following week. So I'm just gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.